Picture this. Two figures kneel in a darkened room, their right hands clasped tightly together. A third person stands over them, wand tip pressed to their joined hands. With each question asked and answered, a thin tongue of brilliant flame coils around their fingers, forming a glowing chain of magical fire between them. This is the Unbreakable Vow, an arcane ritual promise, so binding that to break it means death. An unbreakable vow is a magically enforced oath between witches or wizards. It's not just a dramatic name. If a wizard breaks this vow, they die. There are no second chances, no wiggle room, and no way out once the vow is made. The magic literally ties the vow-taker's life to the promise they've made. Fail to uphold it, and the consequence is fatal. As Ron Weasley put it bluntly to Harry, when you break an unbreakable vow, you die. That deadly certainty is exactly why unbreakable vows are so feared and so rare. Even the most notorious pranksters in the wizarding world understood the gravity of this spell. Fred and George Weasley, usually game for anything, once tried to bully their little brother Ron into making an unbreakable vow when he was around 5 years old. The twin jokesters nearly succeeded before their father caught them in the act. Arthur Weasley, normally mild-mannered, went mental when he found Fred and George clasping Ron's hand and reciting a vow. It was, by Ron's account, the angriest his easygoing dad ever got, and for good reason. If that childish prank had been completed, Ron would have been magically bound to fulfill whatever promise his brothers demanded, or face certain death. Fred later joked that his left buttock has never been the same since the beating Arthur gave him. The message was clear: you don't mess around with an unbreakable vow, not even as a joke. So how does this extraordinary spell actually work? The unbreakable vow requires 3 participants, and a very deliberate ritual. 2 people make the pact, and a third person, called the bonder or witness, performs the spell that seals the agreement. The 2 vow makers must stand, or kneel face to face, and clasp each other's right hands, creating a physical link. The bonder then touches the tip of their wand to the participants' joined hands and oversees the exchange of terms. As each condition of the promise is spoken and accepted, magic responds. A thin tongue of flame shoots from the bonder's wand and winds itself around the clasped hands, binding the 2 parties in a visible fiery tether. Each new vow creates another fiery strand, interlinking with the previous ones and wrapping tighter. By the final vow, the flames form a thick, rope-like chain that glows red-hot around their hands. It's a beautiful and eerie sight, a physical manifestation of the life and death bond being forged. Notably, the flames don't burn the participants, they are symbolic, a sign that magic itself is sealing the contract. Once the vows are set and the enchanted fire fades, the deal is struck. From that moment on, breaking any part of the vow triggers the spell's deadly enforcement. There is no known countercurse, no way to retract an unbreakable vow once made. It's called unbreakable for a reason. There's no undoing it, and no sneaky loopholes to exploit. If the promised conditions aren't met, the magic will automatically exact payment in the form of the vow-taker's life. The only escape is if fulfilling the vow is rendered truly impossible by circumstances beyond the vow-taker's control. For example, if the task vowed turns out to be moot. But short of such technicalities, which are rarely mentioned in canon, an unbreakable vow is ironclad. You keep your word, or you die trying. Throughout Harry Potter canon, unbreakable vows are mentioned only sparingly, underscoring how exceptional and dangerous they are. The most famous example takes place in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. In a chapter aptly titled Spinner's End, Narcissa Malfoy, desperate to protect her son, turns to Severus Snape for help. 16-year-old Draco Malfoy has been given a deadly mission by Voldemort, and Narcissa knows it's likely a death sentence for her boy. In her panic and maternal love, she asks Snape to make an unbreakable vow guaranteeing Draco's safety. This is a remarkable moment. Narcissa is so afraid for Draco that she's willing to risk binding someone else's life to his cause. Even Bellatrix Lestrange, Narcissa's sister, and a fanatically loyal Death Eater, is stunned that Narcissa would go this far. Bellatrix initially distrusts Snape and derides him for claiming he'll help Draco. To Bellatrix, talk is cheap, but an unbreakable vow would prove Snape's word beyond any doubt. And so, on that dark night in Snape's sitting room, the unbreakable vow is made. Snape kneels opposite Narcissa, and they clasp right hands tightly. Bellatrix looms over the pair, acting as the bonder with her wand poised on their intertwined hands. Narcissa's voice trembles as she begins to spell out the terms of the pact. "Will you, Severus, watch over my son Draco as he attempts to fulfill the Dark Lord's wishes?" she asks. Snape answers firmly, "I will." Immediately, a tongue of fire curls out from Bellatrix's wand and encircles their knuckles. Narcissa continues, her eyes shining with tears. "And will you, to the best of your ability, protect him from harm?" Snape replies, "I will." A second tongue of flame twists around their clasped hands, weaving itself with the first, and tightening like a fiery chain. Finally comes the crucial demand, spoken in a whisper. "And, should it prove necessary, if it seems Draco will fail, will you carry out the deed that the Dark Lord has ordered Draco to perform?" At this, Snape's hand twitches in Narcissa's grasp. Even he is momentarily shaken by the gravity of what he's being asked to personally commit. Murder on Draco's behalf. Bellatrix's eyes widen in shock as she watches, hardly believing that Snape might actually consent. A heavy silence hangs for a moment. Then Snape answers, in a quiet, resolute voice, "I will." In that instant, the unbreakable vow is sealed. A third tongue of flame bursts from Bellatrix's wand, entwining with the others and wrapping around Snape's and Narcissa's hands, like a rope, like a fiery snake. The blaze dies away, but the effect is eternal. Severus Snape is now bound by magic to protect Draco Malfoy or die. Bellatrix is described as astounded. She never expected Snape to literally stake his life on Draco's protection, but he has. From this moment forward, if Snape fails to watch over Draco, fails to shield him from harm, or refuses to carry out the murderous task should Draco falter, Snape's life is forfeit. He has effectively signed a contract in his own blood, one backed by unyielding enchantment. What happens next in the story illustrates both the power and the peril of the unbreakable vow. Over the course of Half-Blood Prince, Draco indeed struggles with the awful mission Voldemort gave him. In the end, when Draco cannot bring himself to kill Albus Dumbledore, Snape fulfills the final term of the vow. He steps in and kills Dumbledore himself. It's a shocking moment, but it also serves as Snape's completion of the promise he made to Narcissa. By carrying out the deed Draco couldn't, Snape keeps the unbreakable vow and spares himself from its lethal curse. In a tragic twist, this outcome was secretly orchestrated by Dumbledore and Snape ahead of time. They had agreed that Snape would be the one to kill Dumbledore all along, for the greater good. Whether Snape anticipated the unbreakable vow, or it merely forced his hand, the vow ensured that no matter what, Draco would not have to murder his headmaster, and Snape would protect the boy's soul at the cost of his own innocence. The unbreakable vow bound Snape to a course of action from which he could not deviate. Had he tried to back out or failed to fulfill it, the magic would have killed him at the moment of his betrayal. Thanks to Snape's adherence, we never witnessed the fatal curse strike, but Ron's simple warning, "You die," tells us everything we need to know about what would have happened. Aside from the Snape and Narcissa pact, we have only a few other glimpses of unbreakable vows in Wizarding World canon. One appears in the Fantastic Beasts film series. In the 1920s, a young French wizard named Yusuf Kamar was forced to swear an unbreakable vow to his father. He vowed to avenge a family grievance, to hunt down and kill the man who had wronged them, no matter what. This backstory from Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald shows that unbreakable vows aren't limited to just one era or group. They've been used in the past as solemn instruments of revenge and obligation. In Yusuf's case, the vow nearly consumes him. He spends years trying to fulfill it, and it's implied that if he fails, the vow's magic will eventually take his life. It's a grim inheritance, illustrating how an unbreakable vow can lock a person into a path of vengeance with deadly stakes. Fortunately for Yusuf, unforeseen events release him from the vow's terms, a rare case where fate provided an escape route, since the target of his vow turned out to be someone other than he thought. But such loopholes are the exception, not the rule. So who can cast an unbreakable vow, and what do we know about the spell's nature? Anyone with sufficient magical skill can act as the bonder. It doesn't appear to require a specific magical pedigree beyond knowing how to perform the charm. In Snape's situation, Bellatrix was conveniently on hand to serve as the bonder, and she clearly knew the procedure. In theory, even a young witch or wizard could attempt it, as Fred and George did, but doing so is extraordinarily reckless. The spell is advanced enough that it's never taught at Hogwarts, and is likely only known through word of mouth or illicit research. In fact, the Weasley twins probably learned about it from eavesdropping or pure curiosity, since their family would never have condoned using such magic. The very existence of a bonder role hints that the wizarding community expects a responsible third party to moderate the ritual, perhaps to ensure both participants are entering the vow willingly and understand the stakes. The bonder performs the incantation. Interestingly, the specific incantation is never revealed in canon, and guides the process, but after the fiery chains have bound the two vowmakers, the bonder's job is done. They hold no control over the vow thereafter. They are essentially a facilitator and witness. There's no indication that being the bonder puts one under any magical obligation. Only the person who swears the vow is at risk. That said, acting as bonder to an unbreakable vow is not something one would do lightly. It means you are helping set a life or death promise into unbreakable stone, so to speak. In Bellatrix's case, she was eager for Snape to be bound, likely because it served her interest to test his loyalty. But a more benevolent witch or wizard would probably think twice before officiating such a deadly contract, knowing that one slip by the vow-taker means their instant demise. Given all this, it's easy to see why wizards rarely use unbreakable vows. The spell is legal as far as we know. The Ministry of Magic doesn't explicitly forbid it in the books, but it carries a severe moral and practical stigma. For one, asking someone to make an unbreakable vow is essentially saying you don't trust their word unless their life is on the line. It's an extreme measure, typically born out of desperation, fear, or ruthless intent. We see this with Narcissa, who invokes the vow only because she's a terrified mother who sees no other way to secure her son's safety. We see it with Yusuf Kamar's father, who used the vow to ensure his son would carry out a vendetta. These are not everyday situations. They're life and death scenarios or matters of unbreakable, literally, loyalty. Socially, making someone swear an unbreakable vow might even be seen as somewhat taboo. It implies a profound lack of trust and a willingness to put a colleague or friend in mortal peril if they don't deliver. It's the kind of thing that could end relationships, assuming the person survived the vow at all. No wonder we never hear of, say, Dumbledore requesting an unbreakable vow from the Order of the Phoenix members. That level of coercion and lethal enforcement was antithetical to the trust and goodwill Dumbledore valued. Voldemort, for his part, didn't bother with unbreakable vows either, likely because he preferred the power of fear and outright magical domination, like the Imperious Curse, to keep his followers in line. An unbreakable vow requires a willing participant to say, "I will," and Voldemort probably knew that forcing someone to agree under duress might be less reliable than the dark arts he was already using. Ethically, the unbreakable vow is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it guarantees absolute accountability. A promise made under a vow will either be kept, or the person making it will die trying. In a world of deception and betrayal, one can see why that would be incredibly powerful. Think of all the times trust is broken in the Harry Potter series. An unbreakable vow would eliminate any doubt. But on the other hand, the cost of that certainty is horrific. The spell doesn't distinguish between a deliberate betrayal and an honest inability to complete the task. It only knows that the vow was not fulfilled, and it punishes with death. This raises serious moral questions. Is it right to bind someone's life to a single promise? Most wizards would argue it isn't, except perhaps in the most extreme circumstances. There's also the question of coercion. A truly willing unbreakable vow, like Snape's case where he agreed relatively voluntarily, is one thing. But imagine a dark wizard threatening someone into a vow. The victim might say, "I will," out of terror, effectively signing their own death warrant either way. Canon doesn't show us an explicit instance of a coercive unbreakable vow, but it's a terrifying thought and certainly within the realm of possibility. Because of these implications, the unbreakable vow carries a whiff of dark magic. It's not categorized alongside the unforgivable curses, but it shares that same absolute, unforgiving quality that defines dark spells. It's magic that deals in death as a guarantee, which is not something light-hearted or commonplace. In the end, The Unbreakable Vow remains one of the wizarding world's most mysterious and sobering enchantments. It symbolizes the ultimate trust or ultimate distrust between witches and wizards. To even consider using it means the stakes are desperately high, and the people involved are willing to gamble with a life. It's a piece of lore that adds depth to how we understand magical promises. In a society where words can literally become bonds of life and death, a promise isn't something you take lightly. Perhaps the very rarity of unbreakable vows is a reminder that true loyalty and honor can't be forced by magic. They have to come from within. Wizards and witches mostly rely on ordinary trust and love to keep their word, resorting to this deadly spell only when all else fails. What actually happens when a wizard makes an unbreakable vow is both straightforward and astonishing. A spell is cast, flames coil, a life is bound to a promise, and a clock starts ticking for as long as that promise hangs unfulfilled. It's a kind of magic that doesn't allow any cheating of fate. In a world filled with love potions, lucky elixirs, and mind control curses, the Unbreakable Vow stands out as a spell that offers no shortcuts and demands the ultimate collateral. It forces everyone involved to confront the very meaning of trust and commitment. After all, if you're willing to stake your life on a vow, it had better be for something truly worth it.